Good evening, sir.
Good
How you
evening.
doing? Everything all right?
Everything all right? How are you
Uh,
today?
Pretty good so far. I'm in Belize right now,
All right, that's what's up, buddy, brother.
trying to take care of some business matters for
That's
my
what.
daughter and myself,
Okay, man. That sounds like
and other issues that pop up, that
okay,
I have
yeah.
to deal with.
Okay, man. Nothing too serious though. Nothing too.
No, 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 just time, attention, and resource has to be
Okay, correct, correct, correct,
addressed, no, or dedicated to the process, no.
correct, correct. I agree.
But I'll be here for a few weeks.
Oh, that's beautiful, man.
I won't be back in San Francisco for at least a few weeks.
Okay, okay, okay. What's the weather like
So,
down there?
well, truly speaking, I'm not aware because from the time I drop in, like constant grind, and I have time for like nothing else.
Man,
Can't
no, man.
focus on an objective.
Okay,
I
correct.
haven't had a chance to even talk to Mr. Mike or Mr. Maivit or anybody. I haven't even, as a matter of fact, I haven't even corresponded with my kids and the rest of my family back over there in San Francisco.
Wow,
That are the kind of issues and pressures that I'm facing right now. But
correct.
I hope I don't blow up before the time.
That's
How,
what's up.
how was your day?
Man, I'm just relaxing, man. I had a little day off today, so I was thankful for that.
That's nice. That's nice.
Because I've been on the grind lately myself.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I've been on the grind lately, man. So, but I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm waiting for these guys to come on. In the meantime, I'm gonna put it on in the bottom and just show a couple commercials of what we're doing and stuff. Then it's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
fun. Okay?
Okay, sir. Take care.
Yeah, don't go
Have a
nowhere,
nice
man.
evening. Have a nice evening. I'll be around. I'll be hanging in there.
Okay, I got G Mike on now, so I guess you okay. I got G Mike here now, so I guess you okay. G Mike.
Oh, no, I'm in trouble. What did I do wrong this time?
Well, I got a long list. You got time?
Good
Hey,
evening, sir. How you doing?
Good
hey,
evening, good evening, good evening.
I'm in
What's
your
going on?
backyard,
Oh, yeah?
but I never had the courtesy or the privilege to at least make mention of it to you or let you know because I deal with some pressure cooker things right now, like I'm going to tell Mr. Young, no? And
Uh-huh.
even then, people back home, San Francisco don't know that I'm not there. I'm here on a special mission of investigative process.
Here in Belize.
I'm trying to take care of some other personal matters for my daughter and myself.
Sound like you're there on FBI move. I don't know.
Well,
You're
not
secret.
necessarily FBI. I think the acronym is not the correct one, but the object and intentions is one and the same as they would do.
Well, your secret safe with me. I never tell nobody.
Well,
You got you got to do what you got to do, boy.
I like how
Yeah.
you said that one there would be some more adequate if it is get stated during the live broadcast. But since at least we're not going live yet, I figure I could take it on the face value.
you not live yet? How you
How
know
you
you
been doing, sir? Everything all right with you?
how you know you're not got live yet?
That's what I'm saying.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Well, tell the man if you gone live yet, boy.
Yeah, we're going live now though. So I better take it yourself together. Better
All
get
right.
yourself together, G Mike.
Fix up the furniture.
Yeah, fix up the furniture, man.
Uh, so
Yeah,
so bracket, are you really in Belize? You gone?
yeah, pull them out so you go take care of business. We're going live. We live. It's what? 5:58.
Money now, what we going on? We gone now.
Yeah, okay,
I,
yeah.
I told you.
All right.
Yeah,
So
you
At
got
least I'm not going nowhere.
you're dead at Belize?
Yes, sir. I am.
All right.
I didn't have the pressure cooker.
I left instructions not to let you in, but
No one. Oh,
apparently
no, I
some.
know. No, I know exactly why.
hey,
I'll give a little quick heads up, right?
Mhm.
Me and two of my daughter was supposed to be on this trip, and one of my daughter was still there right now with me. Came in support of my other daughter, And the other daughter was supposed to come to deal with the substantive matter. They stopped you from getting on the plane like the San Francisco.
Okay.
Because they said Belize government now accept her into Belize. Even if she's a born Belizean according to the constitution, that the government is not entitled to stop anyone going in and or out of the country or transiting any part of the country as a born Belizean, that any such matter should be dealt with a Supreme Court judge, the Chief Justice, basically. That's what the Constitution requires. But I try to explain of Belize.
Okay.
Okay, well, we're going live, Mr. Brackett, so.
Yes, sir.
We live.
Yes, sir, I'm there with you.
All right. Good evening, people. Good evening, listeners, viewers, those in Belize and those in the diaspora. This is our weekly link up where we discuss issues pertaining to development of the diaspora. I see another show trying to do the same thing coming online. And of course, we're not gonna begrudge anybody their efforts. We don't want hate for nobody. It is what it is. If we the more the merrier, no. If we can work together and make this happen, then after all, that's the objective, right?
Great.
You Brackett, you believe there's an opportunity, a good chance. By the way, let me ask you, what's your take on the visit to the diaspora by the Belizean representatives last couple of weeks? Are they still there?
I'm not too sure as of right now, because the last week that I was in the States, I was like, my head was down into the ground. I was trying to bury my head to try and take care of some matters before I left. So when I get back, things were just all over the place. So I was pretty much taken up.
So you didn't attend the meeting?
Had no time or no effort. I wasn't even aware that that meeting was actually happening. I knew that some meeting was supposed to be happening, but I just couldn't dedicate the time and effort to it. I had other more pressing matters, at the time.
You didn't get a personal invitation?
Not necessarily, as far as I'm concerned. I barge in, man. When something is going on and I think it's important to me or my country, I am barging. I don't wait for no invitation. But I just couldn't. Sorry.
You thought that wasn't important? And the Prime Minister, man, the Minister of Tourism.
Not that I thought it wasn't important. I'm saying it didn't come on my horizon in terms of the critical elements or the time sequence of my critical items on my list, that I needed to accomplish before I take off over there. So everything else that was extraneous beside what I was targeting didn't show up on my horizon. I didn't have the privilege or the opportunity to allow it to show up. I had to stay focused.
It was important. It's not that it wasn't important, it just wasn't important enough to trump the other things that you had going on.
Right. Otherwise my effort would have turned out to be a failure, and I would not have been able to make this trip to do what I need to do.
All right. From what you understand, and I'm sure you got some rumors about it and whatnot, did they cover any ground? Did they accomplish any objectives? Did they you see anything on the horizon?
Honestly speaking, as I said earlier, none of what transpired, at least for the last week and a half, has been on my horizon.
I see.
I'm here, and like I tell you, even some of my family back in the States don't even know that I'm here. There are people here that's supposed to know that I'm here, and they don't even know that I'm here.
I see. What district you at?
Belize City right now.
Oh, okay.
The right side of the police station. I hope they're not going to arrest me.
You mean back by Raccoon Street?
No, that one. West, what they call it? Eastern Division.
Okay.
The old police station, man.
Downtown by front of Valencia. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Well, Valencia don't exist no more, right?
I didn't know that. When that happened?
But
yeah.
Go ahead. I didn't message them. We're live when I come wrong. Sorry about that.
No, but you think I serious? I didn't believe, boy.
Okay.
I see. Well, I'm the Greg and George. You're here for anything?
I haven't been in touch with the man either, and I see them posting, right? But I haven't had a chance to answer nothing or touch nothing on Facebook or anywhere else, you know.
I
Like I said,
wanted.
I'm under pressure. I'm in what they call it, the pressure cooker or what they call it. I don't want to jump out there because I might end up in the fire
Well,
at the pace that I'm trying to move.
you can't keep on to tell with that if you're not going to tell us what it's about. But if you
Well, you hear about it sooner or later. I mean, I can't broach it now, but you hear about it sooner or later because, like I tell you, the serious matters, you know.
I was reading something that George put up, which I'm want bring to argument with him there, because he said that the anti-vaxxers cost millions of lives over the past couple of years. Do you agree with him on that?
Partially, uh, partially. You can't attribute all the losses or the millions of losses to the anti-vaxxers.
Can you?
Yes, you can't dispense with the fact that because of their way of or their mode of thinking and way of approaching these kind of issues, that they are culpable of what I would call criminal negligence. You know, so on that
Criminal,
point, I would agree with Mr.
criminal,
Mann
negligence in what way? What did they do?
because of what they espouse and how they espouse what they espouse. They have allowed a lot of people to be misled and
But
misguided.
they didn't even allow any expulsion as such from those anti-vaxxers. They didn't allow anybody with any anti-vax views to get any kind of. They didn't allow to post anything on Facebook about it, or discuss anything on the air. I remember one time, some guy was supposed to go on. There was a discussion that was supposed to happen on Love FM between Zenaida Moya and somebody else who were anti-vaxxers, and those who were in favor. And the Prime Minister himself called and said, no, you can't make that go on. Those people can't do that. So how could you?
Which before I transcend to the question, the core of the question itself that was about to ask, the Prime Minister, as far as we laws here in this country, on that point, when he said that can't go on the airwave, he's violating our constitution. I don't know if he knows it or if he sought any legal advice on that matter, but he's totally out of his workers when he made that decision. Just like other previous prime ministers who have violated our constitution, either willingly or inadvertently. But in this case, that was a direct statement on his behalf because he's supporting a specific perspective and wanted to use the power of governance against whoever is going to come up with anything that is contrary. At that point, he's violating his constitutional responsibility, which is when he swore his oath of allegiance and service to this country, to follow the constitution, the law of the land, the primary law of the land, and that primary law of the land says that neither the prime minister and or the government and or the legislator, even if they had 100% support, cannot arbitrarily and capriciously derogate the rights of born Belizean citizens. I'm not talking now about the citizens who we give citizenship with, because those can always be taken away. I'm talking about people who are born as Belizean citizens either prior to independence or after independence. There's no authority in this country, as I'm here sitting right now, that supposed to be indulging themselves into derogating and violating our constitution under the guise that they're law and order. Crap. I'm sorry, I monopolized the conversation.
No.
And I'm putting on the question that I was about to ask anyhow. I'm sorry about that, sir.
Yeah, you do notice I let you speak when you speak. Greg, how are you? Good evening, sir.
Good evening to you all and to the listening audience.
Yeah, the point I was trying to get at though, Leonard, how do you reconcile the 2 points that you make? One is that the anti-vaxxers were, because of their propaganda or spouting facts that they
didn't square with reality.
Yeah, in your point of view, and then also that you're saying that they should have been allowed to speak when they wanted to.
That's their constitutional right. Nobody is empowered to derogate that right. And you can't do it to just one people or a group of people. Whatever you do in the Constitution of all democracy and under our constitution as it's currently written, because they are also in the process of trying to reduce some parts of it to aggregate additional powers to themselves. But that's not here right now. The point is, I was trying to stipulate that I'm not fully in agreement with what Mr. Mybit had wrote based on your stipulation or your statement originally, right? As opposed to, I'm saying that even while I'm not fully in agreement totally with the anti-vaxxers, because they actually, as I stated also, to me, are criminally negligent.
Did they have a right?
Did
they have any right by Constitution to not want to do it if they didn't want to do it?
It is their right to espouse whatever they want to espouse. The government cannot stop nobody from free speech. They cannot arbitrarily and capriciously.
No. You said that they were criminally negligent. But
because they mislead some people into not taking proper account for their own health and well-being.
How can you say that though? Because they weren't even given an opportunity to say much about it. They were crowed down most of the time. But you're saying that they're criminal negligent for saying it, but how for not taking the vaccine? Taking the vaccine.
I understand your point. I understand your point of the question, but I'm trying to answer your question not in a narrow way so as to be misinterpreted. I'm trying to answer your question because remember, I divided your question into two just now, or initially when you asked it, right? I said I was in agreement that they had a right to espouse what they wanted to espouse, but that did not take away the consequence of their espouse. Okay, everybody have a right or have rights, but you also have, along with the opportunity and the privilege to exercise those rights, you have accountability that goes along with the exercise of that right. And if you exercise your right and you cause harm to anyone else, you can be classified as criminally negligent. In other words, you are prosecutable. The fact that you exercise your right not give you the opportunity or the right to affect the rights and the liberty or the freedom or the well-being of other people. So you have to be able to parse those differences. And I'm saying to you, based on the question you asked, the government, account for we constitution, has not that authority that they were actually exercising with the power of the police force behind them. We've been down this road before with Mr. Shevat, and that's the reason why you see Mr. Shevat not the head that health department anymore. Okay, as a lawyer, he should have known better and should not have done the things that he did. And we advocated very much against his being there in that position because he was not dealing with the Constitution under his portfolio the way the Constitution expects him to do. I'm hoping I'm not changing the focus or the subject. Well, I'm not changing the subject, but I'm the focus of the point that you're trying to drive at right now. Specifically, why I'm saying that the people in the anti-vaxxers, they were frustrated because they were not allowed to, and under legal sanctions and the power of the state through the Prime Minister's office, they were not allowed to, and as a matter of fact, some of them were grabbed and beat up on the street unconstitutionally again at that. They had a right that was derogated. And had that matter been taken to the Supreme Court, the government would have been ordered to amend its procedures and protocols as regards to dealing with those matters. They did not want it to go there because they don't want the final ruling from a court to sanction them, but or to tell them that you're totally out of order. I could get up and say that verbally. Who am I? I can't bring no sanction on them or force them out of government to do what, but I could advocate the pros and the cons of the matter. The fact is that these people are doing something that they were entitled to do, and they were stopped from doing it. The other point is, as a result of what they were doing, they were misleading some people who were actually not knowledgeable enough to understand that, yes, you have that right, but you also have the accountability for doing what's right, not only on your own behalf to preserve and protect your life, but for you not to become a crisis person that affects other people's right and liberty and freedom and the ability to live. That nobody want to get no COVID or no other kind of monkeypox or any of these things that will kill you. You don't have a right that because you want to make it happen to you, that you should force it to make other people it happen to other people. And this is why they call it a pandemic, is because it's something beyond just a personal issue. But the
See,
government has the right and should exercise its powers of state.
You go on and on and on, and you don't come to a conclusion. You don't come to a point. And I think the word you're looking for is not accountability, but responsibility, because I don't know they have to be accountable for that. But the point is
responsibility is a small part of accountability, but let's not pass words. I mean, let's go. Those of us who are listening and talking, you and I and Mr. Greg and other people who are listening, most people who are familiar with those two words would understand that we're wasting their time by him trying to parse them, because we're implying the very same point.
I mean, they're
just two different words.
They're interchangeable. They're interchangeable.
Yes, sir. For the purpose of this particular discussion and the items that we're dealing with.
I see. All right. But the point is that what he said, and Gregory, I want to bring you in at this because George wrote a little poem. You know, he writes a lot of little poems and whatnot. Yes. And that poem was saying that the anti-vaxxers caused millions of lives to be lost. And I was going to take issue with him on that comment, because I don't see how not taking the vaccine, and I think he meant by anti-vaxxers those who refuse to take the vaccine, cause anybody's death. In fact, if anything they could only cause their own, because supposedly when you get the vaccine you were protected and you wouldn't die if you caught COVID, and many have caught COVID even after taking the vaccine. But I don't think that they were directly responsible for any lives being lost, again, except their own. What do you think?
Well, I that is something we never really knows, but I do believe that people that don't take the vaccine has a right if they choose to not take it. I don't believe in this big overreaching government that wants to force everything on people. I believe there are religious reasons, there are medical reasons, there are just concerns about it that should be enough to tell the government not to do it. Now, should there be additional restrictions on people that have not taken it? Yes. Should they have the right to fly on a plane if it calls that you need to have it to be on a plane? No, they should not. Or in public spaces or in places where they say, present your vaccination certificate to be here. So that's the burden that they have to carry. But I don't believe that any government, Belize, US, or any government at all should have that authority. Some government we know in China and in many other totalitarian societies, it is forced upon you. And if you just have the inkling of having COVID or some type of infection, they just grab you off the street or your home and put you in some isolation that you never get out of. So those are some of the things I believe we need to look at. But I also believe that there's a right for the people that don't want to be infected, right? And they took the vaccine. And so that's why I could see on the side of people that choose not to take it. But I think it also comes with what Leonard was saying, a responsibility to the overall society to make sure that you're not communicating that disease or be a cause to have it more prevalent within the society.
But this is my argument, though, Gregory. My argument is that it is not that the people who didn't get vaccinated were passing on.
I agree.
They weren't more contagious than anybody else, because everybody was still getting it, still passing it on. They're just not as protected as the others were.
Yeah, I didn't want to address the exact point on his poem there, but yeah, I don't necessarily believe that people that didn't take it, I don't believe that they contributed to the overall pandemic situation.
Yeah,
if you know, for a year and a half, we didn't have a vaccination, right? We didn't have any type of counter to the infection. And so that's where it's spread. That's what caused it to spread. It wasn't, but I think the ideology of people that are no vaxxers does create a kind of a euphoria that they are part of what this caused the spread. And I think that's not just only for COVID vaccination, but for measles and many others, that chickenpox and polio and some of those diseases that they had for long thought they had a good handle on. We're seeing them raising back. Most of them are originating back from Asia and Africa and those countries where they don't have the same type of control and same type of resource to make sure that everyone is vaccinated. And then we see them seeping back into the overall society of even developed countries like the US, the UK, and just becoming more prevalent everywhere.
Go ahead, Leonard. You were saying something.
Yes, sir. On the point that Mr. Morrison mentioned earlier, as regards to the not seeing that the anti-vaxxers are culpable of any deaths, I beg to differ. And that is that when the pandemic started, it's a pandemic that doesn't know any name, number, or address, or any racial categories or whatever. Maybe, yes, it was doing more damage to the elderly or the more elderly individuals in our society, but so likewise it was doing damage, as we found out, and historically now proven, just about to at any age. So I beg to differ in that when people rebel and they have followers who follow them blindly in believing that, well, this is a way for us not to have to deal with this thing, right? And so we can just go for we one way, whether for religious reasons or for political reasons or for whatever reasons whatsoever. I'm saying that, yes, you're entitled to that right, but that right, when you exercise it, do not aggregate against the rights of anybody near to you or in your vicinity or in your society. So I'm sorry, go ahead. It was about
no, I want you to make the point. Go ahead, because you're not getting to that point. What you're saying is not making a whole lot of sense to me. In that you're saying that if anybody was going to get sick, is the person who wasn't vaccinated.
Not necessarily. That is why I'm trying to parse my words, you see, and which is why I want to be understood clearly, which is why I use the words that I use and I say what I say, sometimes leaving out parts without having the conclusive statement made, because I don't want to be misunderstood, because I cut both sides. All I'm saying in my advocacy of allowing people to have their rights and exercising their rights is that, yes, in the exercise of that right, it does not exculpate your accountability and or your in other words, it doesn't excuse you because you want to go and commit suicide. Then, for example, that means that you should take a lot of people along with you. That's basically where they come from with this point. You want to go out there and commit suicide, or you don't want to take the vaccination, or you want to follow your personal philosophy or religion or ethnicity or whatever, go ahead.
What I was hearing for the most part,
but allowing other people to get killed because the virus is spreading by virtue of your conduct. You're becoming a host of the virus, and a lot of them people died. Just like people, whenever people take the vaccination and still die.
Hold up. You become a host of that virus, and other people
transmit it to others.
So
you transmit it to others.
How about the people who
become a carrier?
How about the people who got vaccinated and still contracted the disease? Were they also a host for the virus?
Exactly, they were. But I want to clarify that point. If you bear with me for a second, I want to clarify that point because it's very salient. Look at the statistics in terms of numbers of how many people were not vaccinated and died, because those are on record as of today date that we are having this discussion. And look at the statistics of the people who got the vaccination and who survived, or who didn't got the COVID itself. The preemptive factors. In other words, which one is bigger? On which scale you would like to be standing? The one that didn't get the vaccination and died, or the one that got the vaccination and so on and died?
But that's
what are the numbers indicating?
That's not the
argument. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, the only thing I'm going to say is getting the vaccination does not prevent you from getting COVID or any of these diseases.
Proven, well proven.
Right? The vaccination will just prevent the disease from getting to be the most serious effect that it could take on the body.
Right. On the personal individual.
Yes.
Right. So, but the argument I'm making is that when people like Leonard and George says that the ones who didn't get vaccinated caused the ones who got or caused others to die as a result of the virus, I don't see how that adds up. I don't see the logic in that.
I can show you quickly. I can point it out quickly to you. Initially in the United States.
No, you're not going to point anything out quickly. Go ahead.
Okay, well,
point it out.
Let's leave it at that then.
No, I don't think there's any evidence that people that there's an overall ecosphere that kind of says if you don't get vaccinated, you're part of the problem of
part of the propaganda. The propaganda machinery.
The spread of the virus, right? Because but we know that particularly in the case of COVID that vaccinated or unvaccinated, you could contract the disease and be a carrier of it. What we
the stuff changes. It changes.
Yeah. What we know is that the effect of the virus will not take the full toll on the body if you have the vaccination and have some immunity to it.
Right now, as we are speaking, the different variants of that disease, the vaccination and the other medical treatments that they are developing are only affecting the previous strains that we became aware of. The thing is changing, and we're having new variants of it that they still haven't started yet. So I'm sorry, go ahead.
So you're saying that you have strains now that are resistant to the vaccination.
Exactly.
So that means the vaccination.
Well, I don't know
but even before then, we only had one case in the United States, right? And the man get up there and say, we only have one case. This way, and get rid of this in a 1 week time. Or former president, right? And the man had been told by the intelligence agencies, which he claimed that he didn't believe in, and which is why he probably continued fostering that perspective. Yes, sir.
Let's not make it an anti-Trump issue, though, because the idea more stuff.
I'm stating historical facts. Whether some people know of it or not, doesn't change it. It's already history. So water under the bridge. There are things that we can point to, which is what I'm trying to do in support of my perspective. In other words, I'm trying to use reality and the circumstance of historical established facts to aggregate to what I'm saying as being plausible.
I see.
If when they had only one case, that person had already developed a vaccine or something had already been in the pipes, and that one person may have been vaccinated, it is quite unlikely that it would have become a pandemic, not only a local disease, right, an endemic disease.
Think you missed something that Gregory said. The vaccine does not stop you from being infected nor from transmitting the virus. All it does is make your body resistant. Go ahead.
The statement you're debating is part of what is causing the issue about the vaxxers and anti-vaxxers position. If you lend support to that perspective, people are going to buy into it and they're going to say, okay, well, to hell with it. We don't need no vaccination in the first place.
The anti-vaxxers are more pronounced than just at COVID. I mean, that's a whole philosophy for just millions of people across the world that does not believe in taking these type of things. And there are cases where in unique situation, polio vaccine cause deformity and cause all type of issues for some people.
Very true.
And so does some of the other vaccinations. So there is some valid point in that why that group of people exists. You know, for we've mentioned it over and over. There's some social, some political, some religious, some you know,
Let-
just people's thinking that
I'm
that
along with you 100% on that perspective, on that point.
there's more than that. There's something more than that too, because Bob Marley did a song, "Man to Man is so unjust," and we know. I heard Bill Maher the other night make a statement: human beings aren't nice people. Um, you remember the Tuskegee incident? You remember
Yes,
that
sir.
the experiment? There,
And that was deliberate. That wasn't an accident.
you remember
Right?
the smallpox situation with Indians and blankets and whatnot?
Right?
You're aware of
Right?
that?
Mhm.
So when people are skeptical, it
Yes.
is not without reason.
Oh
I
no,
mean,
no, no, no,
yeah,
no, no.
we know what can happen when a group of people. In fact, you alluded to Trump a while ago, and look what happened there, where one person with an idea of, albeit misguided, can sway half of the population of the U.S. Millions
Mm-hmm.
of people,
Mm-hmm.
74 million, uh,
Mm-hmm.
uh, to agree with him and look to him as a paragon of all that is true. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so you cannot really uh, um, you just can't blame people for being skeptical. We have history to point to.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I will agree with you 100% on that
Yeah,
because that's reality and that
yeah,
historical facts again that
yeah,
are undeniable. They're already established as facts into history, and there are no way that we can undo them or take them back and say, well, it didn't happen, or it can't happen, or it shouldn't happen. We wish it wouldn't happen.
yeah. Yeah, there is evidence of that. There's the Tuskegee experiment.
Mm-hmm.
There's the one you mentioned about the Indians, and then I read recently, and I don't know how close it is or how true it is, where there was some experiment in Africa, particularly South Africa, where people were going to facilities thinking they were getting medical assistance. In fact, they were being infected with AIDS at that time. This is back in the 80s, 90s.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes,
And so
yes.
so we have to be very careful about people that come across saying they want to help us doing good and they have
Uh,
this cure for all that's
Mm-hmm.
going to set us well when in fact
Use,
they're
use you as guinea pig.
worsening our body.
yeah,
Use you as guinea pig to make them hustle
it's
the money.
there were a terrible situation, and I don't know. I don't know what can be, how you can prevent against that, how you can be sure, because at the end of the day, let's be real though. Even with the vaccination, it's been what, 3 years at most.
two
uh,
years 2 years since the vaccination came out in
2 years.
2020. Yeah,
So
and it
at the
started
at
in
the end of this,
2019.
it's not like we have proof positive that will wipe away the virus, the pandemic as such. And in fact, if you yourself are saying that there are strains that are coming out that are resistant to those vaccines, then it turns out that those vaccines then are almost useless,
Yeah.
unless you had
Yes,
caught it and
Well,
escaped death as a result.
well,
but
I've
if
not
you,
heard of
sorry.
any. I know Leonard mentioned it. I've not heard of any strain that has yet been proven immune to the vaccine that we're doing. And I know that constantly they're evolving and making different mix of it to kind of capture what the variant they think is being circulated in the population. But I haven't heard of any that specifically they have not been able to address. But you know, it's something ongoing, and
Yeah,
I
But
think
here's
some
here,
people
yeah. Go ahead.
some people believe that probably for a while until this burnout, it may go for like a couple of years that we have to get boosters. You know, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, or maybe it even become a more permanent thing like we do for the flu. You know,
what is the purpose of the boosters?
well, the boosters is to try and capture the new variant strain that are coming, that is being developed, because it's a living virus, right? So the body is
Mm-hmm.
constantly trying to trick it to survive, for this virus to survive. And so
Mm-hmm.
it seems like it will continually be some effort as more and more people get vaccinated and less people get infected. I think that's where
It will go from a pandemic to an endemic, and from an endemic to a just standard septic flu like we have had in the past.
Many people believe we're there now. But again, one other point that I took objection to, how many, which one of you guys, or should I say any of you guys believe that this was manufactured in a lab in Wuhan?
I do.
I don't.
I put together a whole long thing that explained how the stuff arrived even in Wuhan, in China, and then in Wuhan as a specific location. It was a virus that was sent over there to be experimented on and basically got out of control. And the very doctor that was helping to do the experiment, when he spoke up about it, he was disappeared.
Yeah,
I do believe that this virus is so complex. They said it has some of the trickiness of AIDS, and it has some of the other more complex signatures that they have not, that only comes from very complex virus. And the evolution of it, if it was known before, they would have seen strains of it before it got to this complex level. So
they were studying it. Yeah, and they were trying, when the thing get out of control, when they realized what they really had on hand, they start blaming bats and snakes and all kind of esoteric animals that the people eat and so on over there. People eat esoteric animals from the time of creation till today in all parts of the world.
Yeah.
And you have these variants of diseases popping up all of a sudden unannounced. Some of these things are created.
My point was,
sorry.
you keep on to add to your
sorry.
My part of my objection was that instead of saying, oh, it's the anti-vaxxers that are responsible for deaths, not once did he say, oh, it's these scientists that were in his lab working on this and allowed it to escape and get into the wider society. If anybody is responsible for those millions of deaths, it would be them. But there's again,
I could go one further, which goes into the theory or the concept of the informed, and that is that, from my vantage point, this thing may not have been an accidental release, as was claimed. That was just the issue of claiming it as to be an accidental release is to dodge culpability.
But you'd have to say that's
because the Chinese scientists that were dealing with this matter was doing so on behalf of the Red Army.
Well, hold on.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think it was I think
sorry.
anybody that would kind of release a virus like that would just be out of their mind, because they didn't have any immunization to it. It's not like any country had some type of protection for their population against it. So I believe that it was accidental. But we know these viruses like COVID-19, Ebola, and all these type of viruses are very sophisticated, and we know that the governments experiment with these things
all right. Now you're coming along my line.
To try and see how they could wipe out the other guy. It's just madness. It's just madness.
Well, America was at the stage of trying to crush the Chinese economy.
But
when this virus so-called happened on the scene.
But those are unsubstantiated allegations.
No. There's an economic warfare going on at the time. I don't know if you can recall it specifically. I can send it out to you.
It could or could not be, but you cannot prove conclusively that it is or isn't. So it don't make no sense to go up
that goes to the Chinese defense. That goes to the Chinese speculation that they put out there to the general public.
I wonder though.
Sorry.
My friend George Mavitt is in the room. I'm wondering though, should there be limits on what scientists can do? Should we just give them carte blanche?
Who's going to restrict scientists? They have some organization that talks about ethical science and stuff, but we know for a fact from experiment that they're trying to create a super army and all those kind of things, and those things are going on. And unless we put our head in the sand and think that those things aren't happening, that they aren't, U.S., China, Russia, and all those countries are doing Israel. They're all doing advanced DNA manipulation type of scientific effect that has severe consequences for the human population. And
Exactly.
some of them are specific that could affect the genes of just a certain group of people, whether they be
Right.
Hispanic or black or white or
Well, I think
Asian.
Like what you
that,
call designers drugs, designers
Yeah,
pandemic, or
I,
designers,
virus.
I think Gregory that you said it right. That it is madness because they think they can do that. They're really out of their minds totally because it would affect them anyway, one way or the other. Even if they say they get rid of all the black people on the earth, I mean, what kind of world are you going to have? It's ridiculous because we're
No,
all
because
we're,
the gene
Mr.
pool of
Chairman, they can't get rid of all the black people in the world because white people came from black people and they will remain as being the
yeah.
surviving black people.
Again, you go into these, you make these comments as if you have positive proof in front of you that they are. We one way or the other.
Study
They say
anthropology, man. Study anthropology. That's your conclusion that
study
you can arrive at.
whose anthropology, who writes that.
Well, you got me there with that point too, because
Until the lions learn to write, history will favor the hunter. Correct.
right, that's true.
So
well,
you. I mean,
they did some DNA study and they find that Neanderthal gene run through almost 90% of all human beings, and
Uh-huh.
and except there's a small group in Africa that I think they don't have that particular gene trait for Neanderthal. So
another very wide conversation there because there's so much there when it comes to that as to and again we have to get to the question of creation versus
Oh,
evolution. No, now Judge,
no,
we're gonna
actually.
Judge because you have been the topic of this conversation. A poem that you wrote
yeah, he
today.
triggered it, right?
Yeah,
And then he sit back there cool.
as if he's not
The man set up all the world alarms, man.
as if he's so innocent. I mean, yeah, it
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah. Sorry, Mr. Chairman and gentlemen. I was out in some personal business. Sorry for the tardiness.
understand that you had to make money.
Um, yes, yes. All right, Chimaka. No argument. Tonight they said I find it heartening that I'm agreeing more and more with my enemies. So, but, I'm not going to do that.
Boy, I never went there. I don't know what that about.
So now you got the man in an enemy category, man.
No,
You really think good of the man.
I'm getting ready to say I wonder if I should defend you, Leonardo, just like you take a licking. But go ahead, Judge.
No, man, no. Thank you for the defense.
Yes, gentlemen, Mr. Chairman, what are the topic tonight? I seem to have gotten in on the end of
Yes.
Poem.
what is it?
Your
Can I
poem that
contribute?
your
Or
poem
will I
that
be
you
passed over as per
no,
normal?
no. You'll be thrown full scale in on the lion's den. Hope you will come out like Daniel. Um, the poem that you wrote and a specific point that you raised in there that anti-vaxxers caused the deaths of millions of people during the pandemic. You care to expound on that?
Maybe the man want to read the poem for us.
Yeah, you got a poem in front of you?
Maybe we could start with that for you.
Well,
So at least the public will get a whiff or an idea what is it at the bottom of the whole thing.
yeah. Well, there are what we call facts, and then there are opinions. This one is really not an opinion; it's a fact that I've woven into a poem. Let me try and reach a poem, Jacob. You know that where is it? Not jobs. Is that it, Mike?
No,
It's not jobs.
I don't think.
Sometimes that's the name of the poem.
Jabs
That
as I
that's the
understand that
you see.
I understand a lot of people didn't want to take the vaccine because they refer to it as a jab, and and a Creole when you say jab, they know they no jab. So, but I don't know. I don't know. It's a rumor. It's a rumor.
Well, it's not job. If you use the Queen's English properly, it's not job, it's jab.
Well,
As in, right?
no, we
All
talk
right,
about
so
jab. This is the jab. Jab you
it's a
with the
job.
needle.
It's a job.
I think
It's a
that's
The
what they
JA.
were.
The
Muhammad
JA, not the
Ali,
JO.
you understand?
JAB. Yeah.
That's it right there.
But yeah.
Yeah. So it's that kind of job, and to the point that anti-vaxxers have caused much grief on this planet. It is. It is. Knowledge is a very liberating thing, and the anti-vaxxers have gone in the opposite direction. These are people who I'm convinced either willfully or purposefully have led people down the wrong path. I will tell you that I have an older brother out in California, and to this day, he has gone religious. And to this day, he has basically said, I know to put that poison in my system because Uncle Sam have various formulas. The formula will come to the ghetto, now a different one from will come to the other people there. So there's a touch of conspiracy theory.
Can you understand?
It has happened in the past.
Could you understand?
We're not having a disagreement.
No, we're not. But could you understand how?
Me and my brother, I said, we're not having a disagreement. You are older than me. In the Maivit tribe, you know, the elders or the elders basically carry sway. So I said, you know, we're not having a disagreement. I will stick to science, and then you stick to whatever it is that you stick to. But science is something that whether you believe it or not, it's true.
I believe God is the same way.
Whether you believe that gravity works or not, gravity does work. You see?
Yes,
so
yes.
I left my brother there, and I said to him, you could lead a horse to the water, but if you don't want to drink, it's not going to drink. And the great tragedy is that the people who are saying, don't take the job, one of them is my hero, one Donald Trump. Donald basically said to his cohort, don't take the job. You know who the first person that was exposed to the job? Donald. Donald, when Donald returned from hospital, the first thing that he took off his mask, I said, don't take the job. People scatter because they know Donald was kind of half crazy. Not all victims half crazy. So Donald is a quintessential example of how hypocritical some people could be. They would say, don't drink the water, but they have drunk and they have been healed. And the vulnerable people who follow him and who follow the Pied Piper, those are the ones that have become victims. So whether or not you believe in my poem or not, Mr. Chairman, it's really not, it's not an opinion. It's a fact that I've woven into a poem that says...
It's a fact because you declared it a fact.
No, it's not declared a fact. It is a fact. The figures will bear me out. Almost 6 million people on the planet, almost 6 million people on the planet perished.
As a result of
people did not take the vax.
They're the ones who are responsible for that. Those people would not have died. Those people would not have died had everybody taken.
Mr. Mike,
yeah.
The probability that they would die is greatly reduced.
Did everybody that died, was everybody who died anti-vax or did not take the vaccine?
The disease don't know no difference.
Well, they didn't.
When you attack, you don't know no difference. You know they calculate whether or not you're anti or pro.
Well, G Mike, you know that it's not everybody that has died. Actually, one of the persons that perished second in Belize was one of my relatives that lived in the United States for the better part of 40 years. So he was no anti-vaxxer. So, so in there are people who are not one side or the other.
How about Colin Powell? How about Colin Powell?
Sorry?
Colin Powell.
Yeah, a lot of good people went.
But
And
they
so
were
it-
he took the vaccination, and it was, in fact,
Well,
many felt as a
There are
result
different
of it.
variants, like I mentioned earlier, sir. There are different
There's
variants,
not,
Variants of
only
the
that.
vaccination.
right? Not the vaccination of the disease.
Ah,
And while you might be taking a vaccine that was applicable to a previous form of the disease, the other thing where they come will still carry on, because that only good for yesterday. The thing where they come today are the one that still carry on. But our family are the thing where we call originally. It just changed, metastasized.
Well, that's a point.
And
But
that
another
particularly
thing to consider is the fact of what they're referring to as preconditions.
yeah.
Mhm.
People who are vulnerable, people with compromised immune system,
Mhm.
people with preconditions such as if you are susceptible to, for example, pneumonia,
Mhm.
because it's really a disease of the lung. So if you have these preconditions, then whether you have whether you got vax or not, then there's a probability that you would have succumbed. The earlier you got the vax, also the better it is.
George,
There's abundant data to show that people who got vax versus who did not get vax. There's abundant data to show that those who were vaxxed had a much greater survival rate than those that were not vaxxed.
That's all right. That's all right.
I mentioned that earlier, but then I kind of got in the woods
I could.
with my
I
credibility.
think, though, that most of the people that died, the vast majority, 90% of them, 85% of them that died in the period before there was a vaccination for the virus.
No. Not so.
Not that size, not that
so.
percentage,
Not
but
so,
a large
so.
amount of people did.
No, it was. When we were having those 100,000 people dying a week or whatever, that was in a period where we didn't have a vaccination.
Mr. Morrison, this is not so. When my relative died,
no, I'm not saying in total, but I'm saying once we had vaccination, people weren't dying in that numbers.
He's making your point, though, Judge. He's making your point, Judge.
No. But what I want to say to him is an interesting point. But definitely, if you look at the Belize data, the guy that died, the first guy that died, actually refused the vax. My relative got an acute. Well, he had preconditions. So what
was your relative's name?
Well, you know the man, G. Mike, Hubert Pipersburg.
Well, he was the second.
He was the first. Hubert was the first.
I think
he was the second. He was the second.
Who was the first?
The first was a guy by the name of Everett. Everett was the first victim in Belize.
Okay, I thought Hubert was the first. I always thought
Hubert was the second.
Okay.
So, but to your point,
when Hubert died, there was no vaccination.
Right.
No, there was
no vaccination.
Correct. That is correct. That is
not
correct.
in Belize. Not in
There was
Belize.
no vaccination worldwide.
That is correct.
There was vaccination. I'm telling you, man.
No, man.
There was vaccination that was being experimented with.
They were talking about trying to get it going, but there was none. You're good point, Gregory. Good point. No, George.
Right.
You're wrong, George.
Vaccination.
I will have to produce the facts as per
This disease was not just coming around at the time when it was declared to have arrived.
Well,
the disease was long.
Yeah.
By the time America realized that they had more than one person, that disease had been traveling in Europe.
For 6 months.
It had been traveling in China. It has been traveling in a lot of other places. We have to contextualize when we talk about these things. And not that we're not stating the truth or facts, but unless we put them in context and in a chronological order.
Yeah.
Okay?
I think
misunderstanding does occur.
I think this disease started sometime in 2019. And it's
exactly.
probably about June or so.
And the CIA had already briefed the president about it. Okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
Sometime in June.
That came out later on after the fact. But before it was being denied and kept on a wrap.
It started in 2019.
Sorry, Mr. Magic. Sorry, sir, because
it started sometime in June 2019 in China, because I think they had shown some photographs of people getting sick and
they didn't know what it was.
a lot of cars at hospitals. I think I saw some subtle. I don't know how accurate they are or how truthful they are. Right?
Well, that's a good
The
point.
CIA was doing its job. They knew what was happening.
Because those pro-vaxxers were vigilant and vicious even in trying to convince people to go ahead and get vaccinated. But George, one of the points I was making is that, do you believe that it was concocted in a lab in Wuhan? That in fact it was in a lab, they were working on it in a lab and it got away?
Well, G Mike, I would say that I don't think it came from nature. I think it was a part of germ warfare.
I see.
Both from the American and the Chinese side, because I believe one of my relatives told me that, and I have to get the data myself, that
older than you or younger than you?
The President Trump was closing down a lot of research facilities, and in anticipation of that, there was some advice that the American research should be moved to China.
Yeah.
You see, and so I think it was experimental.
Which did occur, and America financed it.
I think it's experimental warfare gone bad.
All right, now, what you go stand up. You want to get a standing ovation?
I want to give the man a standing ovation for stating the obvious and the facts.
George,
it's clearer than I would have been able to probably state it.
Yeah, no, I agree with George. The first indication I heard of this virus was that it was in the US and then transported to a lab in China where it was working
for experimental purposes.
But that was in a period before Trump. That was back in 2016 or something like that, because I think the US had made some funding to that same Wuhan lab.
Exactly.
That was doing that
back
sometime in 2016, 2017.
So George, the point I was making is that it would seem more appropriate for you to blame those scientists as opposed to blaming the anti-vaxxers for causing those deaths. Don't you?
No, I wouldn't blame the scientists. Because the scientists were following orders from people above them. They were just scientists.
Are you serious?
Doing scientific research. But there are other people above them.
You're really for real, aren't you?
Well,
you believe that? Yeah.
You have to remember that what has brought civilization to where we are tools.
Of course.
And guns are tools.
How high?
Tools.
How high?
You could use them for positive outcomes, and you could use them otherwise.
How high do you want to build this Tower of Babel? How high do you want to build this Tower of Babel?
Well, it's not Tower of Babel.
That one is a misnomer, Mr. Chairman.
It's really the reality that science has good purposes, and then there are other purposes. Right now,
of course, everything.
Whenever we don't know what Mr. Putin will do, and you know what the fear is? It's nuclear. It's nuclear warfare. But we do know that you could take that nuclear technology and you could produce power that is powering my computer.
Right.
And so you can't blame the scientists. You have to blame the political processes and other things.
And what they use scientific development for?
I think in Wuhan, it was exposed through perhaps some inappropriate behavior. Somebody went from a lab outside. It got outside. And the Chinese knew what the danger was. They discovered that people were dropping like flies. Okay. And as per normal, they will not take the blame. But the Americans basically went back and they said, well, it's coming from a wet lab. Nobody could get info out of China. You guys might remember that there was a process where the Chinese said, all right, you guys come in and do your investigation so that we could see the source of this.
Which was a sham.
What happened, right?
Nobody was a sham.
Anything from the Chinese. Not strange. A communist country. There's no Freedom of Information Act there.
They will not take culpability, or they will not put themselves in a situation where, because they want to become the next world power, where the rest of the world could come at them and say, well, you let this thing go because of personal negligence and or because of whatever other reasons might have existed. You know,
Well,
the bottom
that's
line
an
is that they will
excellent
not take accountability.
Should
That's an
they?
excellent point, Leonard, because you and Greg live over there. I have one of my ballet California, and he said, "Boy, there was a time where people were afraid of dating Chinese women. There were Chinese women that was giving it up, and guys were running in the opposite direction. Negroes were running in the opposite direction because because people were setting on the Chinese. A couple of them died, I think, in North Carolina or Georgia, someplace like that. You know."
But
So,
the real warfare, in real warfare, it doesn't have to be open warfare.
You see,
Real warfare occurs sometimes subtly under the currents.
in fact, G. Mike's friend, President Trump, was calling it the Chinese virus.
Yes.
He knew what he was saying from way back then.
He was-
But yet he was telling Americans, don't worry.
You mean
We only have one case. We're going to get rid of that soon.
you mean you're willing to concede that Trump told the truth at least one time? Is that it?
Who, I'm here to ask that question?
Yeah.
No, man, you're the mess with me now.
That's
You try chance me, Mr.
that's a
Mike.
rhetorical question. I will not
You try chance me now.
answer.
George, you said two things. You said number one, the elder Mivits are the ones who have the sway. So you look, are they, or do you consider them infallible? Or you just go with what they say, whether they right or wrong?
No. I'm not following my brother. Listen, gentlemen, I'm telling you this, and I'm saying this on air, and it's perhaps not appropriate, but I'll tell you, my brother got a very, very bad case of COVID, extremely bad case, and it almost tore his family apart because he was not the only one in the family that was not vaccinated, and he brought it home. I will tell you also that he ended up with a very bad case of hiccup. When I say a bad case, you know hiccup when I stop. Normally, when you have hiccup when I stop, they tell you, boy, you either got brain cancer or you got a brain injury. One of my friends who's a neuro doctor basically said every time you get attacked by COVID, it harms the brain. And so I was looking at my brother. I said, not to him, I said to another elder brother who lives out there also, I said, "Boy, my brother, I'm sorry, but this is like a preventable, this could have been preventable." That hiccup lasted for the better part of 2 months, and he did everything. He went to doctor, he went to bush doctors, and eventually it kind of ebbed.
I could have fixed that for him in 2 minutes.
You may have scare him?
Hold up, let me tell you right now, the cure for hiccup. Next time you get it, try it. Take a glass of water and take 11 sips. By the time you get to 11, it's gone.
No, I don't. You know, Mr. Mike, I don't know that. I get.
Mr. Chairman, you're talking to somebody who deeply believes in scientific philosophies and scientific advocacy.
Right.
You know, so
right. you get hiccups. You say, Greg.
You mess with the man head.
I do, and
well, you hear what a man just said. A man look for frighten you then.
Yeah. Well, I've had the bouts of hiccups from I was very young, so my brain cancer is just living with me, if that's what it is.
Well, so here we are. Try it then the next time you get it.
No, it doesn't go away. I've tried everything. I've tried.
Have you tried that?
The only thing that works for me.
Have you tried that? Gregory?
I have tried. Well, not 11, but I've tried drinking water slowly.
Yes, no, you don't do that. You take 11 sips and swallow. Every sip you swallow. And try it. I mean, what can...
Next time.
Remember me and try it.
Okay.
And then let me know. All right.
It's more of a psychiatric issue than anything else at that point.
Let me say something. I think I know what causes my hiccup. Usually it's that the bouts come about after I've drank beer. So I've been associating it that there's something in the hops that causes an allergic reaction in my body.
Yes. Do you like beer?
Not that much, but I drink it occasionally. But most of the time that I remember getting it, it was after I finished drinking some beer, and it's be something like Coors beer or something like that. that I wouldn't normally drink.
I'll send you some beer and then you try the 11 drops.
But you see,
No,
see,
mine
Gregory,
when I get hiccup, seriously, when I get hiccup, it could last for a day. And the only thing I do when I get it is try to go to sleep. And sometimes when I go to sleep, when I wake up, it's gone.
Okay.
Sometimes it comes back after like a period of time, it would come back. But it would usually, it could last, it could be an issue that stays with me for a good 10, 12 hours.
Interesting.
But Gregory, on the scientific side, you know, when you use the word allergy is just an inflammation. You know what cancer is? It's an inflammation.
Yeah.
You know what a brain injury is? It's an inflation. Anything that gives you pain is an inflammation.
Yeah.
And so your point is, your observation is probably on point scientifically.
Yeah.
That when you drink this, basically what it does, the cells, the brain cells are producing major episode of mucus, and it's probably pressing on those neurons, and it's giving you that response. So if I were you, I'd follow it up with an MD or somebody who is into research, you know, because we're talking about it, but this might be the path to some discovery, to some medical discovery.
You are use the man for experiment now.
Yeah, the man want me go for guinea pig.
Yes, man.
I am saying go from Mike's mumbo jumbo.
You call my proven method.
Sorry,
My
Mr.
proven method.
Go from Mike.
I'll tell you something that works. You come up with something.
Go from Mike. I have to apologize to Mike.
Mr. G, if the man wants to see if the thing works, just try it. Sir?
That's all. Simple. No.
The man you want to send me some beer.
Judge.
If you send me a case of Bellikin beer, I'll try it and see.
I'm sure you will. I'm sure you will. Judge, we're talking about ethics versus ethics of science. Gregory, how did you term it?
Yeah.
Scientific ethics and whatnot.
Yes.
Do you think there ought to be, or do you think scientists should, because you've been telling us how much they've done and the good they've done? I stand myself. My cousin was reminding me the other day that with my many transplants, implants, and whatnot, it was as a result of science. Should there be ethics as far as what they are able to the bounds to which they can go, as far as with germ warfare and etc. and etc.
There is international ethics codes, and if you violate them, you can be stripped of your scientific and or your credentials.
You would no longer be able to.
It does happen.
Well, remember,
right, whatever.
Remember two things. Remember the Tuskegee Airmen, and remember Dr. Mengele. These were both scientific episodes and events.
Sanctioned by the state.
You guys will also recall that in the early 90s, when I was out in Britain, there was this assertion that the races, when compared in terms of intelligence, had the high points and the low points. White guys from Harvard were saying, when you look at SAT scores, etc., it showed that the Negroes were inferior in terms of performances. The data was obviously flawed.
Intentional. That is intentional.
There's definitely a relationship between brain size and intelligence, but they were using data from slavery. They were using old people data. The data was not disaggregated, as scientists would say. So you have bad science and you have good science. So, but to your point, G. Mike, obviously there has to be ethics in science, just like how there has to be ethics in economics. Last week, you recall that you guys were adamant in defending our own Shylock. You were adamant in defending Mr. Cashcroft here in Belize. I said that Mr. Cashcroft,
how did you get to that point?
Tribes, and I did use the word a parasite.
The man is a benign The man is a benign, good corporate citizen, man.
George,
There's
how did he
economics
get
and there's
back to
bad
that?
economics.
Yeah,
You
but
see, so there should be ethics across the board.
he wasn't satisfied. They wasn't satisfied that argument was concluded, Gregory. But you know
No,
what? You know what? But you,
it was pushed
both
aside. It was pushed aside, Mr.
both-
Chairman. It was pushed aside,
both
sir.
you and
Yeah,
Leonard,
be fair to us. Give us a little break once in a while.
both you and Leonard refused to listen to our points of views. You were just putting it you putting words in our mouth.
George,
No.
Right now you're
But the
doing
man
that.
is a good corporate citizen.
You were suggesting that we were.
whatever
He's a
you wanna
malignant
say-
good corporate citizen.
my point is, whatever you want to say about Ashcroft, I believe you. But I want you to also understand,
Very good.
whatever bad you attribute to him, you need to attribute to your elected representative that allows whatever he's doing to be ongoing.
I agree with you.
100% agree with you too.
Isolation. And this is why you have regulations, Greg. In the United States, you know, they have antitrust. Mr. Ashcroft, as we speak, owns 50% of the banks in Belize. If left unchecked, he will own 100% of the banks in Belize. Why is monopoly bad? Monopoly is bad because you basically have the market forces are no more operating.
It becomes
They're
malignant.
no more operating. There's no competition.
50% is
Without
not a monopoly.
competition, there's not good outcomes.
50% is not a
competition,
monopoly.
The huddled masses will suffer.
50% is not a
so-
monopoly.
I'm not doubting you on that, and I'm not saying that Ashcroft shouldn't be checked in some ways, but what I'm saying is that as long as our elected officials, who we should be the one that we hold most accountable, are not doing what they should be doing, then Ashcroft is on a free reign.
But hold on.
And that will continue to be for a long time to come.
Hold on, Gregory, on this one. Listen to me, George. If there's a project, like there's one right now behind port, and it needs to be done, Ashcroft comes in, he's the only man with the money and who's willing to undertake the project. You mean that just because it's Ashcroft and the history that you know of him, you would not want that project to be completed?
Mr. G. Mike, you should not even ask me that question. And I'm saying
not
you should
gonna
even
withdraw
ask me that question.
I will not
Not
withdraw
because I'm being facetious, but because there's a process called environmental impact analysis. And so one of the things that Mr. Ashcroft was doing, I withdrew from that project. I was actually did right. I tried to bail him out. Mr. Ashcroft was dead set on dumping the sediments beyond the reef. Those sediments would have found themselves back on the barrier reef.
But don't we have regulations in place? Don't we have regulations in place to prevent that?
Exactly. And so we're saying that if you have a project where the bad outweighs the good, then that project should not move forward. You will recall also that Mr. Ashcroft project was actually denied. The approval was denied in its previous guise. And he came back, and it was after vigorous
lobbying.
Lobbying. He was prevailed upon to understand that you could get away with a lot of things with Belize people. You could bring Guatemalan across the border. You could nationalize 100,000 of them, but don't mess with the reef. He understood that eventually. And so he kind of walked back. And if you look at the script of the annex now, there's an annex that he has done that said, no, I will not put it beyond the reef. I will put it on land. That in and of itself is a huge problem. But that is not for this show. It's a
But isn't that how we have done land reclamation throughout much of Belize City? Is true.
Yes, but that's a personal venture that destroys public good. There's a difference.
Mr. Greg, we have done land reclamation, but you have to understand that when it comes to dredging, and especially the method that they are using, which is called suction dredging, basically you just have a cut ahead, burying into the sediment, and you're sending the slurry ashore.
But that's how they did most of the dredging in Kings Park, out by the
Yes.
fort. Out.
Queen
Yes,
Square.
but
Yes, but those who remember what I just said just now, public
Wait, man.
good. There's a difference.
half of that,
Major difference.
half of those things, half of what is dredged is not usable. It's called a slurry, and it remained in a swampy state for a very long time.
But that's what happened to Kings Park. For
But
Kings
what
Park,
I will ask you, why was Mr. Ashcroft in the first place saying
no,
that?
I'm not defending Mr. Ashcroft.
No. But I'm asking. I'm using science on you.
Okay. Go ahead.
When Kings Park was dredged, it was a reclamation where there was not many people. There was not the part that were reclaimed. There was nobody living there.
That's correct. That's correct.
And there was a time that sediment was given to return to the sea. Remember, if there's nobody living there, the fines will basically rush back to the sea, but the wetland vegetation, the mangroves, etc., would have been there to trap and consolidate what we call the fines. Keep in mind, Mr. Morris, that there are two things here. One of the things is that Dr. I can't remember his name. No, Mike. He was a PS. He was a PS and a PUP. He did some excellent work to show that the sediments along the Belize River course and in the harbors of Belize were 80 times World Health Organization standard for mercury and lead. And so when one of the guys was saying, well, listen, we just detect during the EIA hearing, he was saying that we just take sediments from one place to the next. I am saying no. If you look at the mercury content of those sediments, they would be far above World Health standards.
Where's the mercury coming from?
If you are using the slurry will filter into those places where poor people live.
I understand.
And it will not settle out. So there's a public health issue. There's a public health issue also.
Public good.
Will not
goes right back to it. You can't. We could talk all around in the show for all the last 10, 15 minutes.
So let me,
and we go right back to what I mentioned earlier. Public good.
Let me understand this then. So your thinking is that we can never use dredging as a method.
No.
That is the extreme. Let me finish. And we can never do dredging to create a pier for a deep water type vessel because
no.
Or is it, no. Let me finish. Or is it just because it is Ashcroft? Because
neither.
Let me finish for 1 second. 1 second.
It shouldn't be.
Because I do believe that we do need a port. We need all those things. And we have to find a way to address the concerns you have and the danger that may be posed. But we need to resolve that kind of stuff, and we need to be able to move forward and develop our economy. And whenever you have development, you're going to have these type of contrasts of environmental.
And you give me 5 seconds?
Not before he finishes. Not before he finishes, man. God, hold up. When you speak, we let you speak. But let the man finish his thought, man. He's not a man that goes on and on and on. Let him finish his thoughts.
Yeah, well, he does.
He does go on and on?
No, I don't.
For a time T.
As long as you're not agreeing with him. Listen, you said it right. It's Ashcroft that they're bitter with. And they don't even know why. It's a propaganda that has worked well. They have not stopped to say, why I hate this man so much. In fact, it could be said also about Trump. When people say, but then they've come up with different reasons why. But for Ashcroft, what are the reasons why? That he makes money, that he doesn't want to pay taxes and he gets away with it because government officials let him get away with it. What's the hatred of Ashcroft?
But Mr. Mike,
yes,
maybe
sir.
I should ask Mr. Leonard to go first.
Why? Stop,
You mean long-winded Leonard?
You mean I stop you when you start, no?
no. Mr. Leonard is not long-winded. He's forthright
No,
to the point,
let me tell you,
and he's informed.
let me
I
tell
find
you,
to be very
Leonard,
informed and
I'm just
successful.
kidding. I'm just
agreeing
kidding.
with you is informative. Is. But anyway, listen. Leonard reminds me of them old Belize band when they used to play. They play good. But when they come to end, they can't stop. They can't diggle up. But go ahead. Go ahead.
The answer to the riddle of sorry.
Go ahead,
You
Leonard.
apologize
Go
too
ahead,
much.
sir. Sorry.
The answer to the riddle as to Mr. Cashcroft and his opposition is that
But
he's
see,
not a corporate citizen, which all corporations are granted the privilege to become. That is benign. He's a malignant corporate citizen. He takes the government to court and he hard and pulls the government and destroys the economy of this country on behalf of himself and no one else, and to hell with the people. And this country cannot survive and succeed despite the good that he does, because the man doing a lot of good, but he's doing a hell of a lot more bad than the good, and therefore we have to get somehow or another an opportunity to get this man regulated and get this man to comply with our requirements as a country. He can't just hire and pull us because he had the power over us or because he have agreements made with us through the English system whereby he can hire and pull that by virtue of his capabilities and how he knows the system work. And we people that are willing to take the money and run, and he have all of us compromised while enslaving our butt now in a modern era of slavery. That is the objection. That is the frustration. That is the hurt and the anti this man effort. You know, the man could do much better for himself and for us.
All right.
okay.
Well, G Mike.
Okay, George, let's hear it.
I am surprised that you have limited your take on my exposition that this has anything to do with Mr. Ashcroft. It does not.
But
I
you brought it up.
personally do not hate Mr. Ashcroft. Mr. Morrison brought up a technical point, and that technical point is whether or not you can do dredging without causing environmental harm or undue environmental harm. Whenever you change something in environment, there's an impact, and it could be positive or negative. You gentlemen may know that in 2005, there was also the dredging of the port. The method that was used is that the dredge slurry was basically placed in what we call a bund. It was called really in a pond. And that pond was made from the levees of the hard material of the dredging. And what they have done is they do what you call baffles. And a baffle is simply a dam to stop the water that will return to the sea.
Mm-hmm.
And we do know that as that water returns to the sea, the heavier fractions will settle out. The problem with this episode of Mr. Ashcroft dredging is that the humongous volumes were not sufficient for the bunds that would have been built on site. My observation to him, or to them, not to him, was that Nova Companies has some shrimp ponds. When you fly into Belize, you see those ponds, you could still see the outline of those ponds. My observation was that the fines, the slurry, should have been conveyed to those ponds at Nova, where they would have been settled out over many years.
And
All right? Not that we shouldn't dredge,
but why?
More that we should dredge responsibly.
Okay.
Where is he?
So we should have a more appropriate method.
We should. I am really a proponent of development, you know.
Okay.
And we do need the Mr. Ashcrofts in this world. But we need to have, as you had pointed out, Greg, we need to have the regulation. And Mr. Ashcroft thought if we don't have the regulation to regulate what happens to the fines.
But it's not that we don't have the regulation, it's that we skip it for a little sum of money. And,
no.
And
we don't have the regulations,
well stated.
Greg, because if we did, he would not have been in a position to propose that he take it outside of the barrier reef.
No, I think
You
that, but
see?
or in the environmental impact, asking what he's going to do with it. Maybe we didn't have that particular scenario built out, but
Well,
he asked what he could do with it, and they rejected that particular approach because of the damages you are saying it
And
would
he
cause
walked
to
back,
the
like
reef.
you
yeah,
said. You did
yeah.
admit that he walked back from it and
Well,
decided, all right,
Mhm.
let's do it inland instead.
remember, Mike and gentlemen, that there's a concept in economics called you're externalizing. You're
Mhm.
externalizing your
Mhm.
losses.
Mhm.
You're externalizing costs, really.
To the public.
And what Mr. Ashcroft is doing, he's simply externalizing his costs. He's saying that I will take these fines outside of the reef. Me no got nothing to do with no reef. If you damage the reef and fisheries production go down and biodiversity go down and people were used to fish that St. George's Key can't fish anymore, that's not my problem. That's a cost to the society.
But
You know
but
to
but
worry about that.
but George,
You worry about
George,
return on my investment.
But
George, did you
yeah,
not say he's not doing that? That he was proposing to take it inland instead?
Yeah,
On
No, he has a different solution that I don't agree with.
uh-huh.
But
To
he's
do
not
what?
taking it outside of the reef.
Right.
He's
So then
basically saying,
that's not that's a new mute point at this. That's moot
yeah, yeah,
at this point. Yeah.
it's better than taking it to the reef because now he's
Well,
saying,
uh,
sorry, go ahead.
no. You're saying he wants to put it inland now, on land. And I
No,
heard the interview that he had the other day with
no, he's not going to put it inland.
where
He's
is
going
he
to
going
put
to
it
put it?
right in the nearshore environment behind some quote unquote fabric
burns. Yeah.
skirts that we call them
He's creating
skirts.
new real estate for himself,
There's
basically,
there's a
at
problem with
at a
that.
public cost.
Yeah, there's a problem with that. The problem is that those fines will stay there. There's what you call aesthetic pollution, one, but
Mhm.
two, it's an environment for the breeding of pests. You are end up with a huge
Yeah.
you are end up with a huge mosquito problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
One, two, right now, I could tell you guys if you go to where the Coast Guard base is,
Mhm.
they are setting up as we speak. When Mr. Ashcroft puts in his spoil control structures, there will be even greater silting at Coast Guard.
Let me
So
ask you a
it's not
question.
that we're against Mr. Ashcroft, but we want to do it sensibly.
Yeah, let me ask you a question, George. You seem to have a lot of knowledge on it. Could they create a perimeter and fence it in some way with material and drive it in the ocean, in the sea, and then fill that area and create a new island with that material and just let it sit there for the 20 years it will take to
Yeah.
settle
Yeah.
and be offshore so that the infestation from the mosquitoes and whatever else. I remember as a little kid when they were doing the one in Kings Park, and I remember the birds lived out there because whatever was out there was feast for them, right?
Right.
In that muckish water
Right.
and
So-
silt and everything. But
so
could
how-
they do something like that it's offshore so it doesn't have that drastic immediate impact? It will always have an impact on the society. It would always have an impact on the environment. But could something like that work?
Not offshore because technically it could, in the sense that what he's doing, he's not creating an island. He's basically putting it just next to shore.
But that's
No, no, no,
George.
but
He's
That will
asking.
cause-
He's not asking what he's doing.
I'm
He's
asking-
asking, could that be done?
Yes, you could if you create an island with some boundaries around it. If you
That's
create
what I'm
in
saying.
the
All right.
ocean
Yeah.
some spot that essentially what you're doing is you're creating a bund, BUND.
Yes.
Yeah, that can be done. Technically, that can be done. The best thing for Mr. Ashcroft to do would be to essentially use some of his own property.
Well, we don't want to put it.
Basically
We don't
use
want to
that,
put it
but
on
that would
any
be a
land.
loss for him.
It
You know why
doesn't-
use valuable estate, real
Well,
estate.
you don't want all those are close to communities, and you said it already had
Yes,
an
yes, come on,
environmental infestation impact with mosquitoes and whatever, right? I remember the birds from Kings Park, so I'm sure it's going to cause things like that we don't want necessary birds shitting on you and things like that unnecessarily because of the flocking that would happen. But so to me, an offshore type of thing, some considerable distance from any land, any occupied space, 2 miles, 3 miles out from some space, you just burr that off and start filling that area, and maybe in 20, 30 years you have another new piece of land.
The point you made, though, Gregory, needs to be kept up front, that we do need a landing port for these cruise ships that come in. They don't want to use tenders. Many times the sea too rough, they can't get on the tenders, and after tenders,
Yeah.
it's a big problem. Many of the other destinations have us out on that because they had the ships
Right.
can pull up and passengers
Yeah.
disembark.
Yes.
We need to find a way to get it done. If it's not Ashcraft, then somebody else. But Ashcraft seems to have the money and is willing to make whatever compromise is necessary to get it done properly. But the hatred that Belizeans have for Ashcraft, it seems to be the biggest block in the place of this in front of this progress. No.
Well,
What do you think?
well, my view is that there are two macro projects going on. There's a project at State Bank, Palm Green Road, etc. And then there's Ashcroft. If you look at it in terms of environmental costs, actually Ashcroft project is a lesser cost than the offshore project.
Is that causeway still in the making? Are they still
Yes,
planning?
it's still very much a part of it. That would be a huge cost, environmental cost. It will be impacting current, it will be impacting sediments, it will be impacting fish life.
Transiting the area.
It's a huge.
So that has its own set of problems.
Yeah, that has its own set of environmental.
Which is why it was opposed.
So Ashcroft is really where it's at. I don't know if people know that there's actually a third one. G Mike. I don't know if you know. Geg has an approved project. Kind of somewhere before you reach what's the name of the place? Manatee.
Yes,
He's like midway between Belize City and Manatee.
Yeah.
And so that's really a good location to do a project like this.
But the water not shallow. How can he?
You want to dredge it?
He will have to do a little dredging, and I say a little because no. G Mike, he'll probably need to do like a mile of dredging, not more than that, because he's right into the what we call the Victoria Channel. He's right in there. A mile will put him at these ships because where this dredging is premised on the fact that you would need to give those ships at least 12 feet clearance from the bottom from mean low tide.
As well as the turnaround.
In terms of dredging cost to the environment, I think it's Port Magical or something like that is called. That would be a lesser cost in terms of dredging, no?
When they dredge these areas for these ships, is it like a half a mile channel they create wide, or is it something lesser than that?
Less than that. If you look at the one at the port, I think it's about 30 feet. I would need to check it out.
That's all.
It's not. Yeah, that's all. It's really not much play.
But doesn't that silt settle again in?
That's what I was wondering. Doesn't it cave in? The walls cave in?
Over time, it does. Between 2005 and present, there was not much. How should I say? Resettlement in the channel.
I see.
The need for dredging this time around is that there will be bigger ships coming in, ships with deeper drafts, essentially.
Yeah.
I think the dredging that took place previously was, I think, down to 11 feet below mean sea level.
So you're saying the width they need to do is just like 60 feet channel? That's all?
Yeah, it's not wide at all.
Then you gotta have pretty steady hand trying to steer those ships in and stuff. And out of it.
That's a very good point.
Well, how wide is the Panama Canal?
That's a very good point, G Mike.
Those locks are they look pretty close, but they look like 50, 60 feet wide or something like that.
Yeah.
But remember, those are being carried along. The ships are being supported by locks and as they go along the canal. It's not like you're in the open sea where the waves and everything is battering the ship and stuff, and and you're going in one direction. You're not trying to turn around and go back out.
Guys. Let's not we make some closing points then, right?
What?
We don't want to go all night tonight. You just come in. I don't want to hear that.
Just come in and
just right.
And that's a very even-handed and fair man.
You see, that's just like the scientist in you. On a while, all of us suffer. Anyway, yeah, but really, we don't want to go that's reasonable.
Mr. Chairman, on the last point that was being expounded on, can I give my contribution? I promise not to make it long.
Can I stop you?
Since you are already at the point of closing off.
Can I stop you?
Anytime you want.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
You're the chairman. That's your prerogative.
You promise not to be long, you say, right?
Yes, sir.
All right.
As regards to these major projects, as intimated by Mr. Marit a little earlier, there's what you call a cost analysis, cost-benefit ratio analysis that has to be done and is always being done either by the government or on behalf of the ownership of these entities by private organizations or teams. The bottom line is that to a private entity, what they do is that they go for what you call cost reduction as a driving element of this process, rather than cost escalation, which is really what happens during the course of the bringing about these projects. There's always cost escalation. But these guys are interested in cost reduction, and therefore they pull on hard and do all kind of shenanigans to be able to get down to a number. In fact, initially they put out a number out there which never holds. And because I am involved in doing that kind of stuff when I used to be at Bechtel for billions of dollars type projects, I'm aware of these subtleties and these intricacies. And therefore, when Mr. Ashcroft say, oh, he has spent so much, or when Mr. Feinstein say, he has spent so much, they're just trying to hook all government officials or give all government officials hiding room to justify them being able to go ahead and do the project. But at somewhere or another, or at some point or another, the government have to give up the tax, the head tax to them, and give up other 25, 30, 50 years tax-free, all kind of different schemes, so that they make the money and the government and the people of Belize makes none. End of my story.
Wonderful. All right, Gregory, you
just to follow up on that, I have no problem with sensible, good economic decision for tax holidays. I think those are good incentives to attract large investors, but it has to be carefully planned. We need to make sure that while the cabinet and whoever is responsible for making those deals, that they are considerate of the government, that it needs to have revenue and the people of the country needs to also benefit from what's being done. So I come back to our elected representatives that would rather take a little bit of money for themselves and just pass everything to the public as bearing the most responsibility. And of course, the investor, the person that did the development, they're going to make sure they walk away with a profit.
Always.
George.
Always.
Yes. I don't know if you guys have heard of SEA. SEA. It's an acronym for Strategic Environmental Analysis. And basically, it's a tool to say that the Greater Belize City area should be assessed in terms of its environmental dimensions, so that when a Mr. Ashcroft comes in and a Mr. Einstein and the other gentleman comes in, we will say to them, we have done the environmental work in anticipation that development will happen. And that the guidance would be that there cannot be 3 ports. We don't want the public to erroneously say, no, 3 too much. Maybe there's space for 10. but it should be done from an informed perspective. So I would close
Mhm.
by saying, yes, development needs to happen, but it should not be injurious to developers. Because you know what, Mr. Ashraf come in and spend $2 million to do an EIA, but I work out, or anybody to do that. So I think that the primacy of planning by way of the government kind of maturing in its approach to development needs to happen.
Very important.
I am
Very
pro
important.
Ashcroft, but I'm pro responsible Ashcroft, because at the end of the day, it comes down to the quality of life of the ordinary Belizean.
Amen.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. As always, it's informative, um, interesting, and we. I believe that George, you have to go to the blackboard and write 100 times. I will not be late. And then next week, next week we meet same time, same place. It is about 8:45 on this side. Anybody here what happened with that hurricane with the out there? Is it threatening? Is it anywhere near? So we'll have to keep alert, keep our ears to the ground and see what we come up with. No,
Yeah,
but
I didn't even know there was another one.
yeah, there was one there just developing, and in fact, that one looks more threatening than the former one.
Oh, I did see that line. That line
Yes.
that looked right off Cuba, heading like
No, no,
straight
no,
into Bolivia.
No, this one half of
no.
the tip of Honduras there.
This one
Oh,
is
No,
south.
Nicaragua. Tip of
Oh,
Nicaragua.
it's
Yeah,
heading
oh,
south. This
that's
is
where it
south,
developed. That's where it formed.
Southern
No, it's
Caribbean.
heading. It's heading to
This
that
is Southern
direction. But
Caribbean.
Oh,
yeah,
what
This is
happens is that
southwestern Caribbean.
these predictions are being made on the basis of all statistical analysis, and they're not necessarily compensating for the new global warming
the warming, the
changes.
additional warming. Yeah, yeah.
And we in Belize have what we call the world's second barrier reef, which always have a tendency to play havoc with these hurricanes or these um, storms, because they come and they can't push the same amount of level of water up and across the barrier reef, and therefore it channels it out towards Yucatan, tip of Cuba, and through the channel
what
into the
happened
Mexican
with
Gulf.
Hattie and Dean
Well, remember, you attack Haiti, which was in 61, right? Add how many years that was and pick out the difference in terms of, maybe Mr. Myrick could explain that difference to you about why is it that today we are so close to the catastrophic stage of global warming, and as a matter of fact, we are at the stage where it is believed that we are past the point of return, of any natural
are
return.
you saying that
Haiti was much earlier.
but your point then about the barrier reef
That's a
affecting
constant.
so that remains though, regardless of co- climate change does not change that fact.
And this one that is heading close to Nicaragua, to hit Belize, it has to deal because it's bigger than that. I mean, it goes in circles, and it's bigger than. It has to be big enough to surmount the difference that the mountains in Nicaragua and Honduras is going to cause it to slow down, the atmospheric part of it. I was talking about the underground part of it, or the undersea part of it, that always gets disturbed because of the barrier reef.
All right. Anyway, guys, thank you very much. Next week, God bless.
Thank you. Have a
Bye-bye.
wonderful evening.
Nice program. Thank you very much for having me to participate.
Yeah, yeah. Mic check, mic check, mic check, mic check.
Yo, yeah, greetings. Thanks for coming in, sharing our thing. I can't to the I was looking up the width of the Panama Canal. I think it's, let's see, 500 feet, 500 feet wide in some places. Sounds about right. 740 in some other places. But yo, regardless of all of that, right now we just the repeat regular routine, everything to the supreme. So I don't know that what we mean. Yeah, a kingdom thing right now. One shout out man like Chino. I mean we got some brand thing to cultivate. One boss. Alright, so what's up to my boss for me. You know, in the building with the gear. I run a two commercial before I come out seeing me, regular routine. Don't know. Respect to my brother Chucky, Stu, Henry, yeah, Roland Levi. Don't know my sis, Ems, Jules. Also Kung Fu Respect to my judge Jermaine, make sure to check he got the thing still viable all the time. Kung Fu